Hey everybody, Stefan here at NAMM19, reporting at the KMA booth, where I finally get to meet my friend Enrico. So I think we should start. Because we've known each other for a while, and
3 years?
Yeah, 3
About
years.
3 years, yeah.
Something like that. Where I remember the first time I stumbled upon your brand and I saw your product video for the Fuzzly Bear. And I thought, this is the coolest shit ever. Like, I had never seen anything like it. Like, the brand presentation is just on point, and so is the sound. Quickly, like, what is your design philosophy? Because a lot of your pedals has this like cool vintage vibe, going like modernized takes on the vintage circuits that you don't really see that often.
Yeah. I'm really like just looking around what kind of stuff was built years and years ago, and what is kind of having a nice vibe, and where you can just modify it in a kind of way where it fits into the modern needs, and how player just can discover the new stuff or the new side of more or less long forgotten tones. So I went with the Fuzzly Bear because it was also one of the first schematic I found and I wanted to build, because it was pretty exciting and the sound was pretty neat, because it comes out through the mix pretty well, and it can go pretty wild on the fuzzy side. So I said, yeah, let's try it out, let's see. And then the next thing I found out was the Tone Bender MK2, which brought me to the minus, because I'm also big Led Zeppelin fan and all the older Pink Floyd stuff. And so I think this kind of warm feeling that you get when you're listening to the
nice,
music.
warm, fuzzy feeling.
Yeah. Just build some pedals that gives you this vintage vibe, but with modern features. So it was the philosophy for the last 3 years, I would say, and now we're diving in more and more into crazy stuff and finding a good combination between basic stuff, basic modes, basic sounds, but with enough capabilities for crazy stuff as well, which brought us to the horizon.
perfect segue onto the horizon, I think, because yeah, if the people who follow my channel have probably seen that I've demoed a bunch of your pedals. I love them, and the latest being the Horizon, which is by far, in my book, your best release up until now. It is just stunning, and it is like this crazy interdimensional ride into outer space. Could you just tell the viewers about your thoughts and ideas when you developed this monster of a spaceship?
Yeah, I mean, we released the Astrospurt, and I really like kind of phaser. Before I did the Astrospurt, I wasn't that into phasers, but then I just tried it, and it was really interesting to see how you have to set up this kind of vintage circuit, matching parts, and it sounds perfectly. And so this brought me into phaser. And then I thought maybe it would be nice to adding some envelope stuff where you can control dynamically by your playing some parameters like the phasing speed and so on. And that was the main core of the Horizon. And then I thought about maybe adding some more features, because a phaser is just working with a control signal, with a control voltage. Yeah. And then having something to control the speed, you can also use this one to modify or to have a manual sweep, a manual phasing going on. And it was so funny as I was trying it the very first time. It was like, wow, it's kind of like a touch wah, yeah, but it's totally different, because the whole frequency range is still there, because you're not having a boost in the mids, you're having notches. You're working with two notches, which is really present and pronounced sound, yeah, and that yields to the idea just using this envelope follower on its own, and also to modify the speed of the phasing. And then we came up with the idea of the stereo panning. So I've said, yeah, let's take one cycle of the LFO on the left side and the other on the right, and having a certain crossover point. And then you got the feeling, as I was trying it the first time, and it worked, after just setting it up on the breadboard, was totally stunning, because it was swooshing from left to right and back and forth. And then also having the possibility to use this as a mono tremolo, yeah, which opened up a different world.
Because there's a ton of different wave shapes in here, which exactly brings this into like tremolo land, because you can take out the phased signal entirely and just use it as a wild, crazy experimental tremolo.
Yeah, and since all the stereo panning and
yeah,
we're having the stereo panning, and we're also having the control of the LFO, which is DC based, so voltage based.
Yeah.
So we said, okay, let's add an expression jack as well to control this, either the speed of the phasing or the speed of the LFO or the manual sweep. And that is giving the player the possibilities to add not just the expression pedal, but also any kind of CV source. And you can just create your own stuff. You can create your own LFO shape. You can create just a swell and stuff like this. You can trigger this, and it's just mind-blowing what you can do with this pedal. I really love this thing.
I love that you're just as excited about it as I am because, you know, it's labeled a phaser, but it is so much more, right?
Way more.
It is like a soundscape device.
Yeah, it
and
is.
like you said with the stereo panning, you just want to live in that sound. It is unreal.
Definitely.
So this leads me to all of your stuff right now. It is analog. Is that, you know, is that the philosophy you go by, or are you dabbling a bit with digital now, or?
Yeah, well, in the very beginning, I learned all the circuit stuff by my own. So it's more, it comes from a DIY side. And when you're not knowledge with programming stuff and programming digital stuff, you're probably mostly sticking to the analog circuit design. And this is challenging on its own, and it's fun. And once you understand how all the circuit designs is working, you can create nice stuff. But there's a certain limit, because you wanna create something really cool. But on the analog side, you have to build up a bigger circuit, means bigger enclosure, which doesn't suit to that many people.
Yeah.
So we're actually now starting to diving into digital stuff.
Yes.
The digital development. I want to go trying to learn about how to program MIDI, how to program presets, how to save presets, because our next upcoming pedals will be a bit more complicated. It's on the same way like the Horizon is, which is on the first side, it's a bit complicated, but once you figure out what block is working with each other, it's totally fine. But to give the player the possibility to save certain settings, to switch between, we need a preset saving, we need a kind of MIDI interface, and that's something we're now heading on.
That just makes me super excited to hear that you're keeping, you know, pushing forward, diving into new technologies. So you think this year is going to be an interesting year for KMA?
Definitely. We learned a lot from the last years about circuit design and also the graphical design, and how to implement or taking the needs in account of the player to bring out really cool pedals which are intuitive, which you can handle quite well. And I think this year will be really good. I think tons of ideas on different sectors of pedals, of sound. So all I have to do is just digest the last year and just setting up any schedule for this year and just go straight along and pumping the stuff.
I'm pumped. That's freaking amazing, Enrico. Thank you so much for doing this.